Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the July 13th, 2020 Lower Makefield Township Planning Commission meeting. We have 4 items on our agenda tonight. The first item being the draft of the May 19th meeting minutes. Anybody have any comments, questions, concerns? Do I hear a motion for approval?
I'll move to approve.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
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 Anyone opposed? All right, that carries. The next item is authorization for the mixed-use overlay ordinance. I guess it's permission to send it to the Bucks County Planning Commission. That's what we're voting on, Jim?
No.
No.
There's
Can you
no vote
expand?
being taken. That's actually the last thing on your agenda.
Oh, okay.
Just address that now. All it is just I sent the Planning Commission the final draft of the mixed-use overlay ordinance to the Planning Commission on Thursday. And this is just an acknowledgement that you guys have received it. And the time clock for you guys starts now. You have 30 days in which to review the ordinance and make a recommendation to the Board of Supervisors. And just for your information, we also forwarded the application or the ordinance to the Bucks County Planning Commission on July 2nd, and they will be conducting their reviews simultaneously. So we should have their comments back sometime, I think the beginning of next month, and you guys will need to make your recommendation shortly thereafter. No action to be taken.
So if I understand you correctly, that would put us, we must have a meeting on August the 10th. Is that what I'm hearing? In order to meet that 30 days, because if we hold off to the 24th, we'll be past that 30-day period, right?
Correct.
Okay.
And actually, if everyone could check their schedules now, if people aren't going to be around, we could move that date around to suit everyone's needs.
Okay.
And you don't need to decide that tonight. Just check your schedules. If people are going to be on vacation, we could come up with an alternate meeting date as we've done over the last month or two.
Right. Well, let's try to keep it August the 10th unless we have if everybody can get back to Jim to see if they can attend the August 10th meeting.
Would we need to have a proposed draft or comments at that time or before that?
Well, you have the proposed draft. It was sent to you on Thursday.
Yeah.
Prior to that time, I think it's probably going to take 2 meetings to discuss it.
Okay.
We'd have 1 meeting at the end of this month to go through it, answer any questions, and then a subsequent meeting to go ahead and make a recommendation to the Board of Supervisors.
Okay.
And that ultimate recommendation would be made August 10th.
Okay. So we should meet then also on the 27th. They should get back to you to make sure everybody can make the 27th and the 10th.
Correct.
Okay.
The 27th of August?
No, 27th of July.
July.
And the 10th of August.
Okay. Gotcha.
All right. So we're going to get into land development applications. We want to get into the 643. Next item on the agenda is the 643 Daubery Road final plan. Mr. Murphy, you want to introduce? Get on mute there, Jim. Or Ed.
Yep, I'm good.
Gotcha. All right.
And I think my engineer's in the waiting room. You might want to invite Mark Havers and Matt Scanlon. I see on the screen, but whoever's running the ship here, we can invite them in. That would be good.
They're coming in now.
Okay. Okay, I see Matt. I don't see Mark, but I know he's in the atmosphere somewhere. So
I'm here.
Okay. Correct, Craig. The plan in front of the Planning Commission this evening is a final plan the preliminary plan for which was approved last fall. It contemplates the redevelopment of the site, which is a little more than 17 acres on the north side of Dobry Road, for 19 quad units, age qualified units. The plan has been pending in the township for at least 5 years, probably longer. In the course of that time, it's gone through many revisions. Ultimately, we resolved all those design issues with the township, with the neighbors, et cetera, so that what you have in front of you, and looks like Jim just added to the screen, is a colored rendering of the plan that was approved last fall. In the normal course, we've now received the final plan review comments from the various township consultants, including, I guess, most notably Andy's review of June 5. We did submit a formal response in early July, but candidly, the comments that have been raised are will comply items, but for I think there are several new waivers that the Planning Commission and Board didn't act upon last fall that have come up in the course of the final plan review. We've also seen the review comments of the EAC, Fred Ebert, the Township Sewer Consultant, and the Township Traffic Consultant, Safe Highway Engineering, LLC. I'm told by both Jim Majewski and Mark that one of the comments of the EAC will require a revision to the size of the stormwater management area by 1,000 square feet or less, which we will agree to do. So any recommendation going forward would include that agreement to modify that basin size, which I understand is not an issue. So, but otherwise, the plan hasn't changed for some time. As one of the Planning Commission members noted earlier, it is directly across Dobry Road from the Caddis Assisted Living Facility, which is under construction and nearing completion later this summer. Part of the agreement between Caddis and Erin is for the complete reconstruction of Dobry Road from the railroad track all the way forward to its point of interconnection with Oxford Valley Road, and that's being undertaken now as well. So that's where things stand at the moment, and we're looking for a recommendation tonight so that we can appear before the board, which I think tentatively has been determined to be August 5. So.
Okay, so the first item, normally when we go through these, just if the rest of the board members remember that this has been through and it's already kind of been conceptually, the layout hasn't changed much since it was approved as preliminary. Mm-hmm. So it's already kind of gone through the approval process. And this is kind of, for lack of a better term, fine tuning the application to meet just a couple more requirements. And I believe there's 22 waivers that are being requested that through the preliminary process we've already approved. But Andy, did you confirm if there is any additional waivers above and beyond what was previously approved?
In looking at it, I had in my latest review letter, I had no further comments as far as additional waivers that would be needed. No.
Okay. So we're still operating under the same amount of waivers that we previously approved, which, by the way, anybody can ask and inquire about. I'm just trying to just let everyone know that it's already it's already been approved through the preliminary. They're not asking for any more waivers beyond there. However, if anybody has any questions or comments or have questions about the plan itself, feel free to ask. But I don't think it's warranted going through all the waivers that we've already once approved.
No, Craig, and can I jump in with a point of clarification?
Yeah.
So Mr. Murphy had talked about a plan revision that would be required.
Okay.
Specifically, there is a setback requirement in the zoning code for a minimum setback distance from wet ponds. And
Okay.
wet ponds, 20,000 square feet and over, or cubic feet, I'm sorry, and over. And I believe it is the applicant's intention to basically not reduce the size of the basin, but just reduce the volume of retained water within that system so that the wet pond is not 20,000 cubic feet and over.
Okay, so they're redesigning it in order to avoid that variance.
Correct.
Okay.
That's my understanding.
That's correct.
Okay. Engineering wise, you're okay with that, Andy?
Yes, I think that there is sufficient volume within the basins, within the rain gardens to meet the stormwater management requirements of the township code.
Okay. Fair enough. Does anybody else have looked through the review letters? Anybody else have any questions or comments or concerns or?
Mr. Bryson?
I do.
Yes. Tony, is that Tony?
Yes, it is. In Andy's review letter of June 5, item 12, the sidewalks on one side of the street. I think the last time this was before the planning commission, we talked about this. And if you could just highlight again, which portion of the road only is going to have a sidewalk on one side of it so that we can have a better idea of where that is.
It might appear better on the rendering. Is it shown on the rendering, Jim? And there he is.
The internal streets will have sidewalk on one side. Sidewalk is provided along our side on Dobry Road, and I believe Cadis is doing it on their side as well.
Caddis is not, so it would only be provided on the north side of Dobry Road.
Okay.
And then it loops on the internal side of the U of the property, right?
That's correct.
Yeah. And then it links to the public space I see up on the plan northwest corner.
Yeah, both spots. There's the lower left corner, we'll say there's a bocce ball court and some benches, a seating area. It's a little parking area that the sidewalk connects into. And on the top left, there's a gazebo, public gardens, and that's also connected with the sidewalks.
Just another point of clarification that the rendering shown is not the latest and greatest layout of the plan set. I believe that the parking lot in the lower left is realigned or is shifted 90 degrees. And then also there's a retaining wall along the edge of the parking lot. That shows the latest and greatest, I believe.
Got it.
Yes.
Mr. Bryson?
Yes.
If I may, I just did a review of the preliminary approval letter that was sent to the applicant.
Yeah.
And it does appear that there are 4 new waivers being requested that were not previously addressed. And I don't know if you want to talk with Mr. Murphy as to the basis for those new waivers.
Well, yeah, since you discovered it, Barbara, can you just tell us what they are? And
it's number 8 regarding the environmental impact assessment report. In Mr. Pokel's letter, it's number 9 regarding reconstruction of Dobry Road. Number 18 of that letter regarding the otherwise required 11 infiltration test pits. And then item number 23 regarding pipe cover to be less than 2 feet at the interface with precast concrete end walls.
Okay. So if they've committed to the review letters if they will comply, that includes those 4 additional waivers, which really are kind of all engineering related more than planning. Do you have any issues with those 4 additional, Andy?
I would support the waiver for item number 23.
Which one's that?
That's the 2
Pipe
foot
cover.
cover over the pipe.
Okay.
I believe that we have, in a comment, we would not support the waiver for item number 18. We believe that additional infiltration testing should be required in the areas for the rain gardens.
Yes, I believe we talked about that, and we would do those during construction so we could find out what the actual rates are, if I recall. Correct, Andy?
That's correct.
You're okay with doing them doing construction, Andy?
Yes.
Okay. So that's really not a waiver because they're going to be required to do it during
Correct.
construction, so they don't need the waiver. So that one could be eliminated, right?
Correct.
Okay.
We may not do the 11 additional tests, but we'll do additional testing as needed. So I'm not waivers needed or not. That's, I guess, semantics.
And I am, I'm comfortable with not requiring all 11. I think that maybe there should be a partial waiver for additional infiltration testing as directed by the township engineer.
Fine.
Agreed.
All right. Sounds good. Something about reconstruction of flared end section? Dobry Road. Dobry Road.
Yeah, again, Dobry Road is currently working towards being reconstructed. So
As what? As a public project or as?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's going to be ultimately dedicated, Craig, to the township once completed. The only issue involves the amount of reimbursement between Caddis and Erin once they get going. Obviously, Caddis is first, so they're doing their portion of the work now, but the agreement is to get all of it done, and Caddis and Erin will account to each other for their proportionate share. So, but the issue is not whether or not it's going to be done. As Andy said, it's being done. So.
Okay.
Well, and the reason I brought it up is because it does not say that in the review letter. So I guess that's a partial waiver, because if you look at the original preliminary land development approval letter, it was a partial waiver for not having to reconstruct the entirety of the road, but to do it in proportion with whatever was worked out with Caddis. So I don't know if that needs to be reworded in Andy's review letter or not.
But they meet the spirit of the subdivision and land development ordinance, right? So I mean, it's a question: do we need a partial or full waiver, or do we need one really at all?
Well, I think a partial waiver would be in order, not a full waiver, because they would still have some responsibility for reconstructing Dobry Road, or a portion thereof, not the entirety of Dobry Road, but a portion thereof.
All right, so we're at a partial waiver for that one. Is that where we're at, Barbara?
Yes.
Okay. So that's 3. What's the 4th one? We got the infiltration, Dobry Road,
and then the environmental impact
statement.
Yeah.
Yep.
We've already, what the waiver is not to do a traffic assessment for the EAC, but we've already submitted our report to your traffic consultant who's already issued a review. So I'm not sure it's even relevant at this point. So, and what it was concluding is Dobry Road needed to be reconstructed. So we already are doing it.
All right.
So, Ed, do you want to withdraw that waiver request, or how do you want to do it? Because
you guys can decide whether, given the circumstances, we even need it. So,
All right.
I guess
I'll defer to Andy on the very first item under his review, 8A. I don't even know what that is, but
That would just be, dry weather samples of outfalls within 1,000 feet of the downstream of the site. I would be, given the fact that, the stream downstream of the site collects runoff from Dobry Road and the Caddis site, which are two ongoing construction projects. I believe that
You're not going to get an accurate baseline.
exactly. I think that I think that we would support that waiver.
Yeah, okay. All right. Okay.
that's it.
Anything else from the commission? Any other questions, comments, concerns?
Yeah, if I may, what's
Sure,
the
Tony.
end of Dobry Road going to look like, where it currently dead ends at the railroad tracks?
Andy should answer.
I mean, I can answer that. There is, I don't know that it's shown accurately on that plan, Jim.
Yes, they actually show that the road is going to be removed past where it's needed to be to end.
Okay.
And on that, it'll just be probably gravel so that the railroad company can go and access their right of way. And there'll be signage just noting that the road ends. And we've been talking with Public Works about how additional signage might be needed in that area. And I can't recall what the plan shows on that. Maybe Mr. Havers.
No gates or anything on it?
There are no gates there now. I went down there at the end of May, and as Jim had said at our last meeting, that the house that was on the other side of the railroad tracks is no longer there. You can still cross the tracks. There's no gate. There was one sort of Jersey barrier, but it was kind of off to the side. If somebody wanted to cross there and drive over the tracks, they'd have absolutely no problem doing it. There was no signage, or if there was, I didn't notice it. There was no visible signage, and it's not a huge safety hazard because nobody's driving down there right now, but at some point it could be.
I believe we had said, depending on what exactly the Cadis signage is doing, we put no outlet signs. I thought there was going to be a barrier there of some sort. I believe that's up to the railroad to do that. I'm not sure if we can do anything there because they would need to maintain access. But we definitely add no outlet signs or whatever Public Works would like to have there.
There may be a barrier there now. I was there at the very end of May.
Yeah, I'm not exactly sure how that's going to end. Like I said, I believe that's up to whatever the railroad really wants because it's really their access way.
Tony, the house you described at the end, was that on the east side or on the west side of the tracks?
West side.
Yeah, it was pointing to it.
Okay. And there's access to that elsewhere, or would cutting off Dobry Road prevent access to that property, even if there's no house there?
Cutting off.
I believe the railroad bought that property
Yeah.
and the house, so the house is no longer there.
Okay.
It just seems to me like without having even a chain across the road, I mean, you're going to have, there's a lot of places back there and there's going to be people that have never driven back there before. I think that you can't really assess where we are now with what the risk is going to be in the future of somebody inadvertently going across there.
Yeah, but
I think the Public Works Department needs to reach out to the railroad and figure out, coordinate whatever kind of gate or some barrier or whatever's appropriate. But I think that's a conversation between the railroad and the township.
Yeah, because we can't mandate anything that restricts access to somebody's property.
Right.
The railroad.
Yeah, nor could we. So.
Yeah, right. So it's a matter of signing it as best we can and keep your fingers crossed.
And this is addressed in our traffic engineer's review letter. Item number 9 states, please coordinate with CSX regarding whether additional barrier measures are necessary to separate Dobry Road traffic from the rail crossing.
All right.
Seems like
And
there
if
should,
I may, Mr. Bryson, there's just a few other
Sure.
points to make on the project
Excellent.
covered. Sanitary sewer service will be provided to the properties across the street from the project. There are several homes and businesses. Laterals will be installed across the street to allow them to tie in. They also extend the lateral down to the east of the project to one property who sits there isolated in the middle, and they threw a lateral in there so that Mr. Quinn can hook his property up in the future when he chooses to do so.
Okay.
What item from
Jim,
the
there's also the issue with the wetland buffer averaging calculation and the justification for that. Mark, do you want to provide that justification?
Sure. I guess there's a couple things that happened. The original wetlands were much smaller. Actually, it's the hatched area you see there, the sort of stippled area. At that time, the township was mowing the wetlands, that whole area there. We asked them to stop doing that once first it was realized it was our property and that there's wetlands there. As well, Dobry Road's been reconstructed and now they're piping additional water down into that area. Because of that, the wetlands have expanded somewhat. So our wetland buffer averaging is to avoid, is due to those two reasons, really, because the wetlands have grown both from the stop of being maintained and constantly mowed, as well as additional water being piped into that area. The buffer averaging calcs I provide to Andy, I think he agrees that we meet the buffer averaging, and we're actually providing additional buffer area in the wooded area that's to the left of the screen there. That was previously that's not a required buffer, but we're going to include that in our buffer and in the easement area. That'll all be protected.
I agree that the calculation is correct for the wetland buffer averaging on the east side of the stream.
Okay. You're not cutting any water off those wetlands with that basin, are you? To dry those up?
No, the water will still be going there. We're going to actually probably, because of the reconstruction of Dobry Road, some of the runoffs increased.
Yeah, okay.
Our drainage area, so part of that's going to be diverted into our basin.
Okay.
There'll be water.
So it's going to be kind of a wash, no pun intended.
Yes.
All right. Anything else, Jim, you wanted to bring up?
just back onto sewer, I know the letter from Ebert Engineering had some questions about the lateral configuration. The applicant supplied a sketch to our sewer engineer, and as noted in your packet, they sent us an email saying that they're now okay with the configuration that they have.
Okay,
Right,
thank you.
that's the July 9 review letter from Ebert that everybody got.
Yep. All right. Anything else from Planning Commission? If not, I'll ask for a motion for approval. Do I hear a motion?
There is public comment for this issue.
Oh, I'm sorry. My bad. I don't know who's in the public, but whoever's controlling it, the first representative may speak.
We're bringing in Alan now.
Okay.
Hello?
Hello.
Okay. This is Alan Dresser, member of the Environmental Advisory Council. We submitted the comments on June 10th that were referred to earlier in this discussion. And I'd like to clarify one thing about the wet pond and our comment about the buffer, the 50-foot buffer that has to go around it. It applies because the pond is 20,000 square feet in size. It's not the 20,000 cubic feet inside in volume. It's the size of the pond. And I assume you're going to reduce the size of the pond now because of this. You want to get it below 20,000 square feet?
That's correct.
And how are you going to do that? You're just going to reduce the permanent water level?
Yeah, I think if we move the contour in about 6 or 8 inches, it gets down to 19,000. So it's really a change to the water surface.
Okay.
Volumes,
and that's not going to change. That's not going to change your stormwater management plan because it appeared you were trying to take some credit for volume storage in that pond between the permanent water level and then the higher outlet level.
Yeah, I think we had quite a bit of excess water quality volume, so it won't really impact it at all.
Okay, that's been always confusing for me in that it seems like the amount of volume you would retain on site when a storm occurs would be that between the permanent water level, which was, I think, 146 feet above sea level, and the outlet pipe, which was about a foot higher. That foot of storage you had there, and that was it. And I looked at these stormwater management documents, and it seems like in at least one of them, you appeared to take credit for the whole volume of the pond. It just didn't make a lot of sense. What is it? Yeah, was it in the other pond, the smaller pond, pond 2? It appeared your permanent water level is pretty much at the height of the outlet to the pond, so you get no storage in that pond. So when we looked at this, we got a much smaller amount of storage than you did, well below what you did. So I don't know if you want to address it now, but I would love to see a response to our comments on that.
Sure. I mean, essentially the water surface elevation is wherever the outlet pipe is. You can't.
Yeah.
It's.
So you're going to keep the permanent water level at the outlet level of the pond.
I mean, that's just how it works. It can't work any other way.
Okay, so you get no stormwater volume credit for the ponds.
The conservation district, who does review and approve the NPDES permit, knowing that a lot of sites don't infiltrate, allows to take credit for a wet pond.
But you did infiltration testing at these ponds, and you didn't find any infiltration.
Alan, we're not going to get into a debate with you tonight about it. We're going to defer to Andy Pockel's review and the NPDES and the Conservation District. I mean, we're not going to keep debating you about this.
Why? I thought we were supposed to be debating. This is the Planning Commission supposed to make a recommendation.
We need to get a Conservation District and an NPDES permit, which we will get. That controls.
Oh, so you don't have the NPDES permit yet?
We do. We do. And noted it'll need to be.
No, is it the one from last year? April
it's still
11th?
Valid. It's still valid.
No, it isn't. I talked to him. I talked to the Bucks County Conservation District.
I did see your email, and it's common that we get a permit and then revisions, and then we get an update. Really, the NPDES doesn't get updated. It's only the erosion control plan, but we submit everything.
Andy, okay, yeah, you Andy. But you don't have it yet. So you shouldn't be telling the Planning Commission you have the NPDES permit.
Well,
we do have it.
There is a back up. There is a NPDES permit, from my understanding, that's issued for the property based on certain parameters. If they change
April 11th, 2019.
I'm working. Listen, sir. I'm working with NIPD's permits right now that are 4 or 5 years old. They don't expire, and if they do, you go back and get them. NIPD's permits are good for 5 years. Am I right, Andy? It's still 5 years? Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. Now, based on the parameters of the NIPD's permit, if they change the design or the limited disturbance or whatever parameters of that NIPD's permit, they have to go back in and get it revised. But the permit itself is still good for the property. That's a fact.
To them, and they said you had to resubmit your revised stormwater management plan because you've changed it.
We do.
Since last April.
Yes.
That's correct. They do have to do that.
Yes.
Yeah.
And guess what? If they don't meet the parameters of the NIPD's permit, they're not going to get one, and then they can't construct. Right. So
all right.
Ultimately, they have to conform. No, that's not up in the air. They'll submit, and if it doesn't work, they go back until they can get it to work. And if they don't meet the parameters of a NIPD's permit, they won't get one, or they won't get their revision.
Okay.
Alan,
I want to,
for the planning commission's benefit, I understand where Alan's coming from. I understand where the design engineer for the development is coming from. Because the numbers, the volume numbers that were submitted from the design engineer do not exactly match up with what is shown on the plans and what is provided, what is required by the ordinance. I did an independent analysis that shows that they have sufficient stormwater volume, storage volume within those two basins, within the rain gardens, within the under drains that are proposed under the rain gardens, within the volume credits that they would get for the proposed amount of street trees, which they did not take credit for. They're allowed to take credit for 10% of the soil volume, amended soil volume at the bottom of each rain garden. They did not take credit for that. So I included all of that. I did an independent analysis and accounted for all of that. And based on that criteria and the amount of storage volume within the two ponds that they've provided, I believe that it meets the volume requirement in the township ordinance.
all right. Well, two things. Did you look at the volume storage in the ponds between the permanent water levels, 146 feet for pond 1 and 143.5 feet for pond 2, and the outlet pipes?
No, I compared the outlet pipe, the bottom of the outlet pipe to the bottom of the basin, because that's what.
Why did you do that? You're assuming the basin's empty when the storm comes. The basin has to be at the permanent water level.
No, I'm saying that
by code.
I'm sorry, go ahead. I'll wait till you're finished.
Oh, but it's stated the ponds are going to be at a certain level, 146 for pond 1 and 143.5 feet above sea level for pond 2. So if that's their permanent water level, then the amount of storage is going to be between that and the outlet pipe, which is, going to be above it. At least pond 1, it looks like it's a foot above it. And pond 2, it looks like it's right at the permanent water levels. So I just don't see the storage there. And then on the rain gardens,
it would be
this side,
but okay.
This side has very poor soils for infiltration. I mean,
Andy,
60-70% of the site has poor infiltration in the soil, and they haven't done any infiltration testing where these rain gardens are going to be. And so it just seems like we're asking for trouble. There's going to be standing water. I mean, you had trouble at Scammell's Corner. I'd hate to repeat that.
Understand.
All right. Well, these are important factors of stormwater management. So I hope the Planning Commission takes that into account. And did the Planning Commission, did you ever get a copy of our comments?
Yeah.
Yep.
You did? Okay. So look through them. I think we raised some valid concerns. As far as the buffer averaging for the wetlands, I mean, they did save some vegetation, but the previous plans before they did the buffer averaging showed those were going to be preserved in already. I mean, they didn't add any vegetation they're going to preserve. It was already there. And I mean, we looked at this and it looked like they just did this buffer averaging so they could put that parking lot in next to the wetlands. That was our conclusion on that one. And the stormwater management plans, there seems to be two of them out there, and it's pretty confusing. It should be all tied into one document that we can look at and see whether it's meeting the requirements. So I would ask the Planning Commission to take these comments into consideration, and thank you for your time.
Any other public comment?
Oh, wait, never mind, Mayor. There are no more comments.
All right.
Hey, Craig, can I ask you a question?
Sure.
Hey, I think what I heard you saying is there was a permit for stormwater management that was given that has a 5-year expiration that right now they're still able to use, even though the plan isn't final because they're changing some things. There's still at some point the final approval from whoever approved the DEP or whoever it is. They won't get the final approval to construct until the final plan for stormwater management meets the original criteria. Is that correct?
That's correct. Basically what it is that they have to amend their existing permit, and if they don't amend it to the liking or the parameters of the DEP, and frankly, the stormwater ordinance from Lower Makefield Township is actually a little bit more stringent than what the DEP requires. So there's two different things you gotta, which is being arguing back and forth. They have to amend their NIPD's permit, and they have to get Andy's approval to meet the Lower Makefield Township stormwater ordinance. So there's two things. I feel comfortable that both of them will be resolved, just because that's the way things are done.
So I think so. So yeah. What I'm hearing is Alan brought up some really valid concerns, but in the way this process works, those concerns will be addressed legitimately at a later point in time.
Or they won't get a permit. That's correct.
Then, okay. That's what I thought I heard during that whole thing, and I just wanted to make sure I understood that correctly.
Yep. Okay. So that puts us back to, do I hear a motion?
So, Mr. Bryson, if I may.
Yes, ma'am.
If the commission were inclined, they could make a motion to recommend approval of the final land development plan as set forth by the applicant, subject to compliance with the conditions in the Township Engineer's Review Letter dated June 5th, 2020, the SAFE, S-A-F-E Review Letter dated June 22nd, 2020, and subject to compliance with the conditions and set forth in Ebert Engineering's email of July 9th and review letter of June 19th, 2020, and subject further to redesigning the pond as discussed. And then I would suggest a recommendation that the requested waivers and recommendations provided by the EAC be deferred to the Board of Supervisors to ascertain whether or not to be granted or not.
Thank you. Anyone so inclined to make a motion with the parameters as dictated by Ms. Kirk?
I'll make that motion.
Do I hear a second?
I abstain.
I'll second.
All in favor, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
We have one abstention. Any nays? Motion carries for recommendation.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Let's see. The next one is 677 Heston Hall.
Right. This is Ed Murphy. I'm here tonight as well for this lot line change that involves Heston Hall, which is today a piece of the larger Flowers Field of Edgewood mixed-use development in the village of Edgewood. I don't know if Jim's going to put up a plan, but this plan was looked at previously by the board, and then most recently was the subject of a zoning hearing board application where a couple of variances in order to implement it were granted. This minor subdivision plan followed the action of the zoning hearing board. All that's involved, and I'll defer to Jim when he gets it up, is a plan that creates a couple of small lot line adjustments. Right now, as I think people know, the residential portion of that mixed-use development is nearing its completion. The commercial section of that development that almost entirely surrounds the residential section has not started. There is no, at the present time, new commercial development that would take part or include the perimeter of the site. At the far western end, adjacent to I-95, is the Heston Hall complex that exists today. And when I say exists, it includes the existing two-story building and all the associated parking that Jim's cursor is sort of highlighting. All of that in that mustard color exists. As part of the plan that was approved a number of years ago that created the mixed-use development, there was a small addition to Heston Hall that was approved, and Jim's cursor is highlighting that 3,600 square foot addition. All we've done and proposed is to create a line between the mustard color and the blue colored portion of the plan. Why is that being proposed? It's because the lender for the commercial project would like to have segregated what's existing, i.e. Heston Hall, from the undeveloped portion of the site that's in blue. That is, the plan shows it goes blue, and then on the other side to the far right of the plan, that blue wraps around along Stony Hill Road as well. So zoning hearing board had no issue with it. There are no new improvements beyond that which have already been approved years ago or contemplated. It is strictly to provide a separate lot for financing purposes for the Heston Hall piece that exists. That's it. But cross easements to enable everyone to use the parking as it was originally designed or proposed. So there's not going to be any barriers between the parking areas in mustard or in blue. So to the eye, nothing is ever going to change. It will look exactly the same way. We just added a couple sections of a lot in dark, or the black line, Jim, I don't know if you can highlight where that is for partway down, right. So that is what is being proposed as part of this minor subdivision plan for financing purposes, principally.
So this is an actual subdivision line. It's not a financial subdivision line. So it's not a condominium line or something like that. It's an actual subdivision parcelization of the one parcel into two.
That is correct. Lot one would be the existing. Go ahead.
And the lender won't be satisfied with just the financial subdivision. You have to do the actual splitting of the parcel.
That is correct. We've had multiple conversations with the lender to suggest what you just said, Craig, and they are insistent that they have a separate subdivided lot upon which their mortgage can be placed.
Okay.
Segregated from what's blue that is yet to be developed. Yes.
Right. Okay.
And that's it.
All right. So I think this is, there's, unlike other land development applications we get in about improvements, there's nothing about the improvements. There's nothing here that we're looking at except for a simple line to split one parcel into two for financial reasons.
Yeah, no new, there's no hidden agenda about looking to gain
Right.
advantage or create more square footage. None of that. It is simply what I just described.
All right. So,
the blue was always commercial and the mustard was always commercial and you're just.
Yes. Yep.
okay. So does anybody have any questions, concerns?
I just, can I make a clarification in our review letter? We note section 178-55E, the subdivision and land development code, about excessively irregular lots are to be avoided. Is there any real benefit for, is there any need for having that lot line where it is, as opposed to bringing it to the rear portion of the residential lots and just carrying a line straight down from the rear residential lots down to meet the difference in the commercial areas?
We tried, Andy, not to change the plan that's already approved with the least amount possible. So that's why we did it that way. And to your comment about creating an irregularly shaped lot, look at it today. Look at blue and mustard together. That's what it looks like today. So we're not doing anything new that it doesn't already exist.
But so, I'm sorry, what was the reasoning by not just making it a little easier?
Well, I don't think it changes whether it's easy or hard. Those are spaces that exist today that support Heston Hall. We just thought that it would make sense to try to maintain the current condition as best we could with the least amount of modification. So that's why. I don't know that it's easier or harder by drawing the line where it is if the physical improvements on the site aren't going to change.
I have a question. Mr. Murphy, if you were to do what Mr. Pokel suggested, would you have to get other zoning relief with respect to off-street parking for Heston Hall?
I'll defer to John Richardson, who I think is here, the engineer to that. My guess is maybe, Barb, but I'm not sure. John, are you there? I don't hear John. He was calling in, but is he in the waiting room possibly? Anybody on the controls can tell us?
He's in the room. He's just muted.
Oh.
How do you tell him to unmute
Am I on
himself?
now?
He's on now.
Okay. Sorry about that. The way we've set this up, it would not require additional parking variances because it's all it's going to be all cross easements. The original development had all the parking shared among all the uses, and that would continue to be. So the exact location in that property line really doesn't affect the parking. The reason that we kind of jogged it around that island is the owner expressed concern about the sidewalk and the handicap ramp that's there that comes through that island. So we tried to not go through any significant feature with the property line. So we came up the curb line, followed the curb line around, and shot across the parking lot instead of dividing up sidewalks and curb ramps.
Okay. The other comment that I had was in comment number, well, I had a few comments, but the other comment that was significant was comment number 1, where a variance may be required because the front setback from the ultimate right-of-way on building number 9 is shown on the plan to be 4.9 feet.
I think that was just a drafting error. These plans have been through multiple engineering firms, and I think it was just a drafting error. The building is 5 feet.
Okay.
The other comments in Andy's review letter, Mr. Chairman, are all will comply, so we don't have any issue with that.
All right. Any other questions or comments by the board?
Yeah, my only question is, and I can't answer, maybe Jim or Andy's, like on the surface, I don't see any issue with this, but are there any potential longer term risks with doing it this way that we could be leaving ourselves open to? That would be the only thing. I don't know if there is any. I'm just asking.
No, to my knowledge, no.
Okay.
And Mr. Costello, if I could,
Yeah.
I know at the zoning hearing board, there was concerns about being able to maintain the current existing parking. So the zoning hearing board's approval for variances were subject to the condition of those cross easements being put into effect and recorded.
Okay.
Yes, and I
Agree.
in my review letter, I have that as being made a condition of approval.
Correct.
Okay.
And the only other administrative item would be, besides the cross easements, is other parts of the overall approval and how they're going to be implemented and the cost shared between the blue and the mustard colored sections of the development.
Mm-hmm. Do we have anybody in the public that wants to comment on this?
There's no public comment.
All right. With that being said, do I hear a motion?
Again, Mr. Bryson, if the board were inclined, they could recommend that the proposed lot line subdivision be approved, subject to compliance with the conditions as set forth in the Township Engineers Review Letter dated July 9th, 2020, with two specific conditions: that the cross easements, as recommended and approved by the Zoning Hearing Board, be signed and duly recorded, with the apportionment of costs between the two remaining commercial lots, and that the issue of the requested waivers be deferred to the Board of Supervisors for their review and approval.
All right, I'll make a motion then to approve the plans per the parameters set by Ms. Kirk. Do I hear a second?
A second.
I'll second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say no. So carried.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
All right, Jim, we're gonna do a little house cleaning here. We went over the issue that everybody should have in their inbox, the overlay district that we have to read through. We're gonna have a meeting about that to ask any questions, go over any concerns, and then meet again to make our recommendation. And this all has to happen within the 30-day period that was started when? Last Thursday, you said?
Well, actually, you could say it starts tonight.
Okay. So the 30-day starts tonight. So then the other item we wanted to discuss was our design parameters that we were kind of working through. And I think the last we left it, Tony's section was up next.
Yes, and I just actually emailed Jim about that today. I have something that's kind of put together that I can email to everybody in about a day or two.
Okay.
That was about circulation and parking.
Right. So it sounds like we're going to have two meetings within the next 30 days. So I'd like to, if ever okay, Jim, you're okay, to get those out. Maybe discuss those items along with the overlay at the next meeting. Is that possible, Tony? Do you think you can get that out in time?
Absolutely,
everybody
yes.
10 days?
Yes.
Jim, you're okay with that?
Yes.
All right.
Mr. Bryson, there is one more item on the agenda that you may have overlooked.
Frankly, I'm having troubles following the agendas, but go ahead.
So it's a Shenard Property Sewage Facilities Planning Module.
Planning module, yes.
And if I can give a little background, the property that was the out parcel from the Caddis subdivision, the old historic house, the stone house that's on the property,
right,
carved out from the Caddis development. Since they're actually wanting to hook up to the sanitary sewer system, they need to have sewage planning module approvals from the DEP. One of the requirements of that is that they get a sign-off from the local planning agency, in this case, the Lower Makefield Planning Commission, that it is consistent with the Lower Makefield Township's planning guidelines. Obviously, this lot and almost every lot in the township is desired to be sewered. This property would actually connect to the line that goes from Caddis out to Oxford Valley Road and underneath and out to the line across the street. And this application is consistent with all of our Act 537 planning that has been done. And just a motion needs to be made by the Planning Commission just to recommend the signing of component 4A, I believe it is, of the planning module.
Just out of curiosity, how much flow are we talking, Jim?
It's one house, so it's really nothing.
Like an EDU?
Probably like one EDU, probably.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, it actually might be two because they have a little detailing business there too. So it's sort of almost like two structures.
Okay. Well, I certainly don't have an issue with it. Does anybody have any questions or comments?
Yep.
All right. With that being said, do I hear a motion? I'll make a motion to approve the moving forward with the full planning module with the DEP for the subject property. Do I hear a second?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed? So carried. Did I miss anything else on the agenda?
I don't think so.
I apologize. I got confused with downloading everything today.
You did miss adjournment.
All in favor, say aye. Thanks, everyone. And Jim, you'll get back and confirm that we're going to be, or are we just going to assume that we're on the regular schedule for the next two meetings? Unless there's
the current assumption, and I'll confirm that in the next day or two.
All right. We're adjourned, everybody. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good night.
All right.
Good night.
Good night.